This week's log question captures the heart of everything that we want to be about in the Summit Counseling Ministry. The question goes like this. I've been to several of the Summit Counseling seminars and noticed that there appear to be a couple of different kinds of seminar. You frequently recommend studying them as a small group or with a friend. That seems like a great idea, but since I haven't done that before, I'm not quite sure how to start something like that. Do you mind giving me some guidance? And again, I would just say your question represents exactly what we want to be about in the counseling ministry. This is success, not if the presentation is good, but if people leave asking this question and feel equipped to take the step that you're wanting to take. That's why we say in the counseling ministry, we don't do events, we create resources. The goal is not to get a bunch of people in the room to hear a message, but to have people leave with content that they can utilize in their small group in their personal relationships. So I'll take each part of your question. Your first part says, are there different types of seminar? Yes, there are. There's the marriage series that we're doing, Creating a Gospel-Centered Marriage. In that series, there are 5 seminars: Foundations, Communication, Finances, Decision-Making, and Intimacy. Each of those 5 seminars is in 5 or 6 segments. It varies from each one. And each seminar is freestanding, meaning you can study foundations without studying the others. You can study finances without studying the others, but they are highly interdependent, meaning they'll be referencing each other as you go through. If there's a spot where with finances that impacts the way that you communicate and how do we negotiate if we have a difference, or decision making, those seminars are going to be highly interrelated, and we draw that out as we do those. There's also the 9-step or freedom group seminars. Currently we have 4 topics, but more will be coming. We cover anger, grief, sexual sin, and the betrayal of sexual sin. Each of those seminars is in 9 segments based upon 9-step models that we've created. There's one 9-step model for how the gospel speaks to sin struggles. There's another 9-step model for how the gospel speaks to suffering struggles. Our goal in those 9 steps is simply to show the gospel moving in slow motion for the different types of struggles that we face. Those seminars are almost entirely freestanding, meaning anger is not particularly related to grief or one of the others, but some of them are intentionally interdependent with another, such as the false love seminar on sexual sin is meant to be highly choreographed with the true betrayal seminar on the betrayal of sexual sin, so that if a husband and wife are facing that challenge, those are meant to walk them through together. Now, what each of those should share in common, whether it's the marriage or the freedom group seminars, is that there is a video recorded live teaching that's broken down into segments. Those segments are put in an order that is meant to facilitate an intentional growth process, meaning they're not just random subjects kind of broken up into topical sections under each one, but there's an intentional growth process in the framework of each of those seminars. And each of those seminars is accompanied by a notebook. That notebook is going to have assessments with scoring instruments so that you can see, okay, how much of a struggle do I have? What areas do I struggle in each of these areas? They come with several different Bible studies meant to undergird the material that we provide. And it also contains a more detailed description of many of the teaching points that we cover in the live material, that if you say that was good, I would just like to slow down and study that a bit more, you don't necessarily have to set up an appointment with one of our counselors. The notebook can be a place where you can study that and see, okay, is this something that I get, or is this something that I'd like to pursue with my small group, with a friend, or with a counselor? So that brings us to your second question. How would I study one of these seminars with my small group? Well, the first thing is to pick a subject that's of interest and relevance to your group. At that point, once the group agrees on it, you would send the seminar link to your group member. I'll provide all the seminar links right under this video post. And each member in the group can decide whether they want to watch the video or read the notebook. And again, they can decide that purely based upon what their learning style and schedule preferences are. Some people in the group may say, hey, I'd rather watch the video. I'm a visual auditory learner. Some go, nah, I'd rather read and be able to mark on a page. Can do it either way. But the discussion would look a lot like our sermon-based small groups. You either watch the video or read the notebook and then come together and discuss that. Now, after you send the link out and the members decide how they're going to study it, you choose a number of weeks for the study. For the marriage seminars, I recommend taking 1 week per chapter. So each one is either going to be 5 weeks or 6 weeks that you would study. And if you're part of the Summit Church, we recommend doing that when we're not in one of our alignment series. Now, for one of the 9-step seminars, my recommendation is that you condense steps 6 and 7 into 1 week, and you condense steps 8 and 9 into 1 week. I think if you're studying that in a recovery group or in a one-on-one setting, it's good to separate those. But once you're doing that in a small group setting, I think you can take those 9 steps and very effectively do them in 7 weeks. So at that point, you've decided how many weeks you're going to spend, when you're going to start, and you come together and you discuss those as a group. I think there's ample content to fill your discussion time. If anything, I'm reprimanded for being too OCD with the amount of content that I put in. As a leader, you may choose to emphasize particular points within a given segment. But basically, I think you can lead the discussion with 4 questions. What did you learn that was new to you about this subject? And just allow people to share around the room that whether they read the notebook or watched the video, what was new to them about marriage communication and the way listening is a part of that, or anger and the way that our motives play into that. Secondly, what did you learn that was helpful for your personal growth? Just directing people to themselves, getting a greater level of self-disclosure. Here's what I realized I need to grow in, and just give people the opportunity to share that. A third question would be, what did you learn that was helpful in caring for others? Get people thinking outwardly focused. Who could I use this with? What did I learn that would help me, whether it's this subject or another subject, just to be more effective in my one another ministry with other people? And then fourth question, how did you grow in your understanding of the gospel's relevance for day-to-day life? And allow people to kind of share where they see, I never realized how clearly the gospel spoke to this, and allow them to have that kind of discussion. So that takes us to the third question. How would I study this with a friend? And that may be a little different from studying with a small group. It starts with building an honest and open friendship. This friendship could be with a believer or unbeliever. If you're coming with a fellow believer, then the type of conversation that you're going to have is probably going to be more discipleship oriented. If you've built a friendship with someone who is not a believer and they share, I just lost my mom and I'm really going through a hard time with grief, then hopefully the seminar on grief would allow you to have an evangelistic conversation that meets them where they are, and they begin to see how well Scripture speaks to the experience that they're struggling with, whether it be grief or one of the other subjects that we address. But as you build that honest friendship and the struggle begins to come to the forefront, then you can recommend one of the resources and just say, hey, our church has come up with something that I think is helpful that addresses this subject. Do you mind if I send that to you? You get a chance to look over it and see if it's something we would maybe walk through together. And then you just set a time to meet. You might meet at breakfast or on break at lunch or Saturday mornings, whenever fits the two of you well. And at that point, you decide to study a segment between each meeting. Now, it's probably going to be slower than a small group in that I would not recommend saying we have to cover one unit in each time that we meet together when we're just meeting as friends. But if you do split a unit, I think it's wise to clarify what you're covering each time. You may say, hey, we covered this much of step 2 in this study, and so let's pick up here so that you don't feel lost when you come together, or you're not sure what to review for the next meeting when you come together. And now, what is your goal when you're studying with a friend? It's not to complete the study. It's to generate a new level of authenticity and transparency between the two of you. Is that the two of you would see the relevance of the gospel in new areas of your life, areas of needed growth, and that you would establish long-term accountability and encouragement relationships with each other. One of the things we say here at Summit all the time is that discipleship happens in relationship. The whole purpose of this resource is not necessarily to educate you, but to facilitate a relationship where change can happen. I hope this helps you utilize the resources that we're creating to equip you to take the gospel deeper into your personal relationships and small group. I hope this video can help you understand how to utilize these resources in a way that begins to feel very natural, so that when you come to an event, it feels less and less like an event and more like you're leaving with something that you can utilize in your day-to-day relationships. Thank you so much.